All right, welcome guys. Welcome to this week's masterclass. And this week's masterclass is going to be all about content creation for business to business. Now, this is actually very different than if you're selling to individuals. The reason being, there's a different expectation from your customer if you're working with a business or you're trying to work with a business. Maybe you're selling a consulting service, maybe you're selling some sort of training, could be a software package. There's something different that they're going to expect from you at the level of professionalism than if you're selling to individuals. It's a different audience. That means your messaging needs to be different. And what tends to happen is a lot of companies come to us and they say, well, you guys put out so much content. What do we need to do? Like, what should we focus our content around? How do we do it? How do you guys create so much content? And what I want to share with you today is exactly how we do that. So I'm going to give you a pretty basic system for how you can create content in a business-to-business environment, and really just put together things that are going to help get your business attention, give you specific topics or ways to generate topics that are going to catch the interest of your intended audience. So that's what we're going to be going over with today. Now, the first thing that I consider when we're thinking about content creation is why? Why do we even want to make content? Why is that an important thing? Because it's not apparent. It takes time to create content. You have to think of the idea. If it's video, you have to produce it. You need equipment. If it's going to be an email or a blog post, then you need someone to actually type it out, or you have to type it out. So why should we even begin to create content to begin with? And really what it comes down to is, number one is you want to give people another place to find you. You want to give your ideal clients another way that they can find you. And if you have posts going up on Facebook, if you have videos going up, social media, YouTube, different platforms, it's just another way for somebody to be able to find you. That's a really big one. Now, sometimes you might hear, hey, you should create content because of your brand. It's really good for branding. Well, that's kind of an answer. Branding is definitely a thing. But the truth is you can't cash branding. I can't pay for groceries with branding. I can't pay for the lights. I can't pay for studio, video equipment with branding. That's going to take revenue. And to get revenue, I have to have customers that find me, and they're going to have to purchase from me. And one thing is, look, before your clients purchase from you, there's got to be a level of trust that you build with them. And that's one of the strongest points, one of the strongest selling points as far as why businesses need to create content, because content will help you build trust with your clientele. If you put out content on a regular basis that actually helps your intended audience, the audience of individuals, companies that can purchase from you, if they watch your content, read your content, if they see your content and they go, wow, that's really useful, or like I can use this. If it's something that they would expect they might have to pay for, but you're just giving them the information for free, that's something that's going to build trust. And that's really one of the main reasons why you want to create content. So back in the day, you go 50, 80 years back, you were limited to how many people you could do business with. How many people could you talk to in a day? That's about how many people you could do business with. Now today, because of the internet, you can reach millions of people all in the same day. Things that would be completely unheard of, impossible, unreasonable way back when. But it's possible now. And what can happen is if you put out enough content, if there's enough places that people can find you, then yeah, there's plenty good chances that you're going to have thousands, hundreds of thousands, could be millions of people that are going to see your content. And if it's something that actually adds value to them, if it's something that actually helps them, it's going to build trust. So that's the number one reason. These are the main reasons you want to create content for your business in a business-to-business environment. It's not just so people see what you're doing. It's to give them another place to find you and to help build some trust with your ideal audience. So that kind of brings us to the next point. Okay, good. We've decided that it's a good idea to create content. Right, it's going to give people a place to find me. It's going to help build trust, which means it's going to make it a lot easier for them to want to do business with me or to close a transaction. But what counts as content? What really is content? If I just record a video and it shows our office, is that content? Yeah, kind of. If I just record a video of myself or take a picture of something going on at the office, is that content? It is. But what kind of content do you really want to make? And what are we going to count as good content that's going to be good in a business-to-business environment? Now, that's a two-part answer to that question. The first part is you've got to know what mediums you have available to you to distribute that content. Because again, people are going to have more places to find you when you're putting out content on a regular basis. But where's your audience? Is your audience likely to read blogs? You know, maybe they don't read blogs, but if you email them, they will read that. Maybe you have to do video. Maybe these are individuals that aren't going to stop to read what you have going on, but you can put together a video that's going to catch their attention. Maybe this is an audience that reads posts on Facebook or LinkedIn. And if you're in the business-to-business space, there's a pretty good chance your audience is going to read posts on LinkedIn, content on LinkedIn, articles. You've got to decide, and you've got to be aware of, like, what are the different mediums that your company can put out that's going to count as content. Let's go ahead and add webinars in here. All right, so let's say we have blogs, emails, videos, posts, articles, webinars. You can put these out on different mediums. You've got Facebook, let's say Instagram, let's say LinkedIn, let's say YouTube. Another really big point about these mediums, realize it doesn't matter what product you sell. There is a segment of your audience on any of these platforms. So let's say you sell to an older audience and you would think, yeah, my clients are definitely not on Instagram. That's the millennial crowd or younger. Not true. I mean, the segment of your clients that are on that platform could be a little lower than some of the others. It doesn't mean that that's not an excellent platform for you to use to be able to identify your audience. So how do you know, like, what to use? Well, you've got to put your content on all of them, and you've got to see which one is actually working better for you. Or just keep putting out content on all of them and just let all of them work for you. But as far as what counts for content, it's all the different things that you put out on any of these mediums. That's going to be the content. Now, what we actually make is going to be just as important as putting it out there to begin with. Now, if you just start recording videos or you just start writing articles, blogs, content that doesn't appeal to who it is you're trying to reach, I don't want to say that you're wasting your time, but you're definitely not going to be getting a lot of return for the investment you're putting in. Because whatever you make as far as your content, the whole point of it, again, is to have people be able to find you and to build trust. And if what you're putting out doesn't appeal to your ideal clientele, well, they're not going to look for it, frankly, so they're not going to find you. And two, it's not going to build much trust, because if they don't care about it, then there's no commitment, there's no involvement. It doesn't really matter to them. There's no trust building in there. So as far as what you make, this is probably the biggest mistake I see with content. I see companies put out content that's just, maybe it's a funny video, maybe it's what they're doing for their event, but it doesn't solve this question here, like, what is good content that makes sense for me to put out in a business-to-business environment? So I'm going to give you a basic formula, something you can apply to whatever your product is. It really doesn't matter. If you sell consulting services, that's one thing. If you're a lawyer, another thing. You can apply this really regardless of whatever your product is. The first thing you need to do is you need to identify your audience. All right, now this is probably the most important thing about creating content or marketing to begin with. You need to know who it is that you're trying to reach. And what that means is you can't just guess. You can't just say, oh, okay, well, I think I'm trying to reach people that are 50 or older and they probably have enough money to buy my product. You actually have to look at who's purchased from you in the past and really segment that out and see, okay, the bulk of my sales or the ones that had the highest amount, my highest ticket items. Who are those individuals who are buying that? Who is it that if I could only reach, one type of individual, like, who would I select? That's your ideal audience. So number one, before you just go ahead and make content, put out videos and posts, you got to think with who are you trying to reach? Because anything you put out needs to be catered around those individuals. If you don't do that, well, then it's not going to matter to them, and you're not going to be attracting the clientele that you're looking for. And the whole point, again, is for them to find you and to build trust. And if those two things aren't happening, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason as to why you should be putting out content to begin with. So number one, identify your audience. Number two, if I want this to matter to them, if I want to put out content that's really going to grab somebody's attention, make them make time to watch my 2-minute video, read my post, it's going to take them a few minutes, whatever the case is, it's got to be something they care about. And you know what people care about? You know what really draws people's attention? problems. I need to be able to identify and understand what are the problems of my ideal audience. Let's say that I'm selling consulting services. Let's say that I'm selling consulting services for an IT company, or let's say for, an IT company, right? I need to be thinking with, okay, well, my audience, if I'm an IT company and I sell a service, maybe I sell a package and I help an office maintain their equipment, their computers, everything updated, the whole thing running. What are some of the problems that they're going to encounter on a day-to-day basis, or if whatever I provide isn't already there? So maybe they have slow systems. Maybe their computers are running slow, and their employees are reaching out to their managers and the executives and saying, hey, I'm having trouble, my computer's lagging, and it's stopping them from doing deals. It's stopping them from being productive, which makes the entire company less productive if employees are having that on a regular basis. So if I'm an IT company and I identify that as a problem, hey, slow computers, lagging, maybe there's a security issue. Those are all potential problems for my ideal audience, which is, hey, the type of client that I'm trying to reach with my content. So number 3 is, how does that problem make them feel? Like, what does that actually do for a company? Look, if computers are running slow, if they're lagging, like, what is the impact of that? What is the impact of that to the business? Well, less production. It's going to cost them sales. Maybe it's just a headache for the managers who have to hear from their employees about how their computers don't work right. These are all different things that are going to come as a result of the actual problem, which is the computer systems. And again, I'm an IT service. I can come in. I can fix this stuff. In my content, that's not what I'm going to say. I'm not just going to make content saying, hey, I fix software, computers. I can make it run faster. Now, that's a commercial. That's not necessarily content. Maybe it counts under the content umbrella. But if I want to put things out on a regular basis and the only thing that I make is a video talking about what I do, then what I'm doing is making commercials. I'm not making content that's going to draw clientele in. And one of the secrets to making great content is that when you make really good content in the B2B space, your ideal clients should be coming to you. You shouldn't have to like pull them in. You shouldn't have to chase them to the end of the earth to get them to do a deal with you. They should be seeing your content, and they should be getting trust in you and your brand over time, to the point where when you have a conversation with them, they're pretty much ready to do business with you. That's the goal of branding and making content on a regular basis, is to have a lot of people see you, find you, trust you, and then when you have a conversation with them, they're pretty okay just doing business with you the first time, and you don't have to chase them down for 12 months to sign a contract or to do a deal or to make a payment, whatever the case is. But this is how we start. We identify the ideal audience. We take a look at what are the problems that they're going to have in the realm of whatever it is that I do. What is the impact of those problems? Super important. And number 4, this is what you actually do with this, is that now I need to create something that gives them either advice or just helpful information to overcome that problem or those problems. So the kind of content that I would make in this situation is, going back to my IT company example, is, look, I'm going to make a video talking about, hey, if you've got a large number of computers in a network and they've been running slow, hey, these are 3 common things that we see that slow down a network that are easily fixable without having to bring anyone from the outside. Like, why would I make that video as an IT company? Something that potentially they could watch and say, oh, hey, I can do that, and then fix it themselves. Because what I'm doing here is I'm building trust. And the truth is, if it's a complex enough problem, if the service that you have to offer is really valuable, I mean, you just telling them how to fix it is not going to cause an executive or a manager to try to learn how to actually fix that problem and do it themselves. What's going to happen is, if they're already thinking about the problem and then they see your content about, hey, here's some common things that happen that could help you completely avoid having a lagging network, which is going to make your people more productive, and it's going to help you get more sales because your people aren't held back by their systems. And you literally give them the 3 tips. You give them advice that's actually helpful for them to overcome those problems. This is where the content piece comes in. The reason that we need to do these top 3 levels, identify the audience, understand the problems, and then the impact of the problems, is because you need to know all of that before you make your content. If I'm an IT company and I just start making videos, maybe they're random how-to videos, or maybe they're just videos talking about how we are at our own office, the IT company in this perspective, it's not necessarily going to be appealing to who I'm trying to reach. I'm trying to reach a decision maker at a company who could use IT services. These are problems they're going to have. This is going to be the impact of the problem. And if I give advice, if I put out content on a regular basis that helps in regards to whatever problems they have in my space, whether it be by a search, whether it be one of our ads, whether it be an email blast, whether it be one of their employees, looking it up and coming to their manager and saying, hey, maybe we have this problem, they're going to have another way to find us. And when they see our content and they see it's good quality information that genuinely helps them, that actually helps them overcome a problem, they're going to start to trust me. And if they've been going through my articles, if they've been getting content from me on a regular basis about how to fix their problems, and they've built up that level of trust, now I can have a conversation with them, and now I can close a deal in the first call. Now I can tell them what it is that I can do for them as a company, and they're not going to have all this resistance because they already trust me, or at least trust me a lot more than if this was the very first time we spoke and they didn't know anything about me. When you put out content like this, following this formula, this is what gets people to trust you. This is what gets people to want to do business with you sooner, earlier on in the process in the B2B space. So let's go through that one more time. Number 1, and this is the most important, you have to identify that audience. Number 2, what kind of problems are they having in the realm of what you do? Number 3, what's the impact? If we don't quantify what that problem means, it doesn't really mean a lot. So if we say, hey, we make computers lag less, what does that mean? What's the problem with lagging computers? I mean, it happens all the time. If your people can't close a deal because they try to send a contract and it lags, and now it's beyond the business hours of the place that we're sending it to, that's a problem, and that costs a business money. That's the impact. So it's super important you understand the difference between, hey, this is the problem you're trying to fix, but what's the impact of that problem? That's huge. And now we have to just give them some advice. Now, when I say advice, I don't mean offer our services. This is a really big one. We see a huge mistake, huge, probably the biggest mistake, apart from not creating content. The second biggest mistake I see is when companies start making content, and instead of giving advice, they just start offering their services. They'll say, hey, if you've got a lagging computer system, we can help you out with it. So give us a call. That's not something that really builds advice. It's just a commercial. Now, there's a lot of those out there. And it's not that you don't want to tell people what it is that you do. It's that the first time that they see you, you want to put something in front of them that actually builds trust, where they can get to know you in a way that doesn't put up a barrier. And you know what people put up barriers to? A pitch, a commercial, an ad, things where they can tell it's trying to sell them something. They're already going to question you. But if I put something in front of them where I don't ask for anything from the client, from the potential client, and I just give them valuable information, something that really will help them, that's where the trust comes in. If I'm just going out there and I'm just saying, hey, give us a call, there's nothing trustworthy about that. There's no reason why they would trust me any more than before they saw that. I have to go out there, I need to understand what the problems are, what the impact of those problems are, and actually give them something that would help in the context of what it is that we do or what those problems are. Okay, so now we know what kind of content to make. We've got a pretty straightforward formula as far as how to make our content. That kind of brings us to the next part. How do you scale that out? Like, how do you make content around that? Because even just explaining it, takes a little while. So if you're going to sit there and you're going to try to make 10, 20 pieces of content a week, I mean, that just seems like a lot. It really is a lot. But I'm going to give you a cheat, a way that you can take one piece of content and turn it into like 5 or 6 different things without having to put that much work into it. And this is huge because you can multiply your time here. You could say, it would have taken me 20 hours to put together 20 pieces of content, and now I can do it in like 2 or 3. Why? Because I know a way to scale it. So this is kind of a cheat. This is something you definitely want to apply. Now, before we get into how you scale it, you've got to think with what are the different spaces or mediums that I could put my content in. Let's say it's blog. Let's say that's one. Let's say the next one is a YouTube video. Let's say I have an email list with subscribers. I send emails. Let's say the next one is LinkedIn articles. Let's add a couple more in here. So we've got LinkedIn, blogs, YouTube, emails. Great. Let's go ahead and say Facebook post. Maybe I'll even say Twitter. All right, so this is how you take one piece of content and you turn it into 5 or 6 different things. So let's go back to our original idea, right? It was that IT company selling their services. You've got a lagging computer network. That's something they can help you out with. Impact of it is people are losing sales. Things are taking longer. The company produces less because of these computer problems. And the advice you give them is quality information about easy things they could look into first before they outsource that problem to another company, right? So let's say that, well, let's call that video number 1. I make a video, one video describing that idea. Hey, these are some things for you to look into in your company before you outsource or before you bring somebody in to help you if you've got some lagging computer network. I make one video as that piece of content, and I put that video on YouTube. I then take that video and I transcribe it. Now, you can do this for almost free. I mean, I think it'll cost you a few dollars for every hour of content you, but there's transcription services. Basically, it'll go through everything that's said in the video. It'll give it to you as text. You can take that same content that you had from the video and you can send it in an email blast and say, hey, these are 3 things that you could look into before you outsource your computer network to another company. You know, save yourself some money. I can take that same thing, put it in a blog. I can make that a LinkedIn article. In fact, I can post a video on LinkedIn. Let's say I'm a company that I'm now putting out content on a regular basis. Here's a real easy and free one that will get you a lot of attention because a lot more people are listening to content nowadays than they are starting to read it. So one way you could do is you could have a podcast. An easy way you can multi-purpose and scale your content out is make a video. Make that same YouTube video, take the audio, and just make it a podcast episode. I use a 10-minute podcast episode. Some things to look into in your network before you outsource your IT to another company, to a service. So now I've got one thing that I made, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could link to it on Twitter, 6. I can make it as a Facebook post with the video, even linking to the article on my blog, 7. And it really doesn't take that much more time. Like this is kind of key. If you have someone who's an internal marketer in your business and they're not doing this, there's a lot of time being wasted. And look, we work with a lot of marketers that work in-house in the companies we do business with. So we'll do advertising for the company, we'll help them with their marketing, and then they have somebody in-house who already handles maybe their social media accounts, sends out emails, handles the email list, things like that. And we give them advice on what to do. And this is one of the first things that we go over is, hey, what are you guys doing for content right now? And we give them ideas as far as what content they can make. And then we explain to them, hey, this is how you can scale that content into all these different platforms and really just save yourself a lot of time. What this also does is it helps your rule number 1 and 2, the main 2 reasons why we do content creation to begin with, which was number 1, for people to be able to find you. The more places the content is, the more of a chance somebody can find you. And number 2, when people find you, it's going to build trust as long as I applied that formula, that 4-step formula, and I made content that was actually going to be helpful to that intended audience. All right, so now what I want to do is, look, I want to leave you with something really actionable here. So I'm going to walk you through an example of a couple different business ideas, just walking you through what it looks like to create content from the conceptual level. Hey, how do I decide what it is I'm going to make my content about? I'll walk you through the actual steps. So the first one was find the intended ideal audience. Okay, a couple tips here. Your ideal audience is not always going to be your average customer. You need to be thinking with, what product are you marketing? What is the product? And then what segment of your audience is the most likely to buy that product? Because really, you need to know what you're selling. Every piece of content you put out there, every commercial, every sort of thing you put out, it's going to be promoting a certain thing for your business. For us, we put out a lot of content in regards to marketing. We have a few different things. We might do marketing, and we'll put out a video about that. And then we might do a completely separate video that's about sales training. And then we'll do a completely other separate video that's going to be about real estate. But we kind of stick to the point on the content we put out. So you have to decide what product is it that I want to actually create content for, and then who's the audience for that product. So in this case, let's just make something up here. Let's say that we have stem cell therapy. Had a client recently, actually had a few of them really, that came on board where this is one of their products. So if I'm looking at an audience for this, maybe it's going to be someone who's in their 30s or older. So let's say 30s to 65, maybe higher. Somebody who can afford this kind of therapy. So maybe income range has got to be in a certain place. Maybe they're going to be located in a certain part of town. So if I've got a treatment, it's going to be a physical location. They have to come to get this, so it's going to be a certain location. So now I've got it narrowed down this far. I know the age group, I know where they're going to be, I have an idea of their income range. And I've got plenty that I can use as far as on the advertising and marketing side to target down to know who my audience is. So what are the problems that these individuals are going to face in the realm of stem cell therapy? Well, I'll tell you a really big one. It's going to be pain. If we're talking about regenerating tissue, we're talking about health, things like that, that's going to be a really big one, and that's a pretty apparent problem for them. Another one, a really big one, is going to be longevity. They're going to be worried that the body just won't last as long, and it won't, frankly. It's a great service. What's one more thing? So it's going to help them avoid pain or get rid of pain, longevity. Here's another one. Avoid surgery. If this is an alternative to something like they could do that's kind of scary, that's definitely a problem. Now, what are the impacts of these problems? All right. What's the impact of pain? So what does that really do? So if you live your day-to-day life and you have your knees, your knees ache, it's hard to walk upstairs. That's an impact, which means your movement's impaired. That's the impact. That's the thing that if I hit on that problem is that they can't move like they used to, is going to catch their attention. This is, again, where that impact is going to be different than the problem itself. If we're talking about longevity, then we're going to get into, if your body doesn't last as long, what's the impact of that? It's not just that you don't live as long or that you're not healthy for as long. You can't do the things that you want for the amount of time that you could otherwise. And that's huge. So it's basically being able to do the things or be with the people that you want to be with for longer, all while being able to move. And if I'm going to put out some content related to these things, I've got my audience, I know their problems, I have a pretty good idea of what the impact of those problems are, is that they're going to be impaired in their movement, they can't do the things that they used to be able to do, they can't be with the people and enjoy those things because of the pain, because of all the issues that come with things that my service could cure or help alleviate. Now, what am I going to actually produce? What kind of advice can I produce for these individuals that's going to catch their attention? Again, this bottom level is huge. I'm not going to put out content that says, "Hey, come to our stem cell therapy clinic and we can help you out with these things." I'm going to put out content that says, "Hey, if you've had trouble moving around the way that you used to, and maybe you're dealing with a little more pain, than you did when you were younger, and you feel like there's got to be a better way of handling this. There's got to be a way that we can get rid of it or that it can get handled. Here's some advice that we give to our clients before we ever offer them our services that sometimes we'll fix some of those problems. And then maybe I'll give them some advice about the kind of diet that can help them avoid some of these issues. Maybe I'll give them advice on certain movements to avoid. Maybe I'll talk about common ways that people get injured, in older age and how to avoid that. I'm going to actually just give them advice that would help that person. I'm not going to sit there and offer my service. I'm just going to give them advice that would appeal to this specific audience who's got these problems with this impact, and that's what I'm giving the advice to. And if I do that on a regular basis, and I post it on all these different platforms, if I put it in a video, if I have a podcast talking about how to fix these problems, if I put it on LinkedIn, have a blog, if I do all of these things, I'm going to flood my space with all the information that they might look for to be able to find me, and it's going to help them build the trust in my company to, when we do have a conversation, say, hey, I'm okay doing business with you. I trust what you guys do. So that's it for today. Hopefully this helps you out. Biggest thing to take from this is going to be how to create that content, identify those problems, identify your audience, then the problems, then the impact, and just give your audience advice that's going to help them out. So hopefully that helps. You guys enjoy the rest of the day and take care.